Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Born from Sin. Today, I'm going to put a trigger warning on my video, only because I'm going to be talking about all the abuse that I've gone through from childhood right up into my adult years. So I don't want to cause any trauma to somebody that might not be fully healed or be ready to hear this. Although I'm not going to go into great details on the abuse, I'm going to go through the different types of abuse that I've gone through. First time I was abused, I was only 2 years old, and I was physically abused by my father. He had come home drunk. Him and my mom had gotten into an argument, and it woke me up out of a sound sleep. And because I was crying and they were arguing, there was just a whole lot of chaos going on. My father ended up getting upset, came over and kicked my bed with his steel-toed boots. The problem was is that his foot slipped and actually hit my leg, so he ended up actually kicking me with his steel-toe boots, and it ended up breaking my leg. I was 2 years old. I was 4 years old the first time that my father sexually abused me and took my innocence from me. It continued for 7 years after that. Pretty much, any chance that he had, he took the opportunity to molest me. I would have to say that from the age of 4, when we moved to New Brunswick, right up until about the age of 8 before we left here, for those 4 years, I was abused, like sexually abused by my father a lot. Like I said, any opportunity that he had, he raped me. I think the most confusing part of it all for me was that although my father was a narcissistic alcoholic, he was a very violent man. Every single time that he molested me, he was sober. I never understood that. Probably something I'll never understand. Through those years of living here in New Brunswick, there was a whole lot of other abuse that happened. And again, mainly because of my father. My mom was not abusive to me physically. My dad, on the other hand, completely different story. My dad was a very violent man. From the age of 2 until I was 11, when he finally was taken away by the police and not really a part of our lives anymore. He physically abused me. He sexually abused me. He emotionally abused me. He mentally abused me. He verbally abused me. There was no way around not being abused by this man. If he wasn't raping me, he was screaming at me. If he wasn't screaming at me, he was taking off his belt and beating me with it. And I'm not talking just like a spanking here, not one of those you tap your child on their pampered bottom to tell them no because they're touching something they're not supposed to. No, I'm talking being locked in my bedroom while this man pulled my pants down, laid me on a bed, and took his belt off, keeping the belt buckle on and beating me with it. I can't tell you how many times I had markings on my bottom or on my back from his belt buckle. Like the imprint on his belt buckle was left behind up the bottom of my back and on my bottom when he beat me with his belt. He used to slap me around a lot. It was nothing for him to shove me into a wall. It was nothing for him to stick his foot out and shove me down and purposely trip me. He was just a very, very cruel, cruel man in so many ways. And the verbal abuse. He used to tell me that I was pretty, pretty ugly. Those words used to sting me a lot, especially when I got a little bit older. I was around like 8, 9 years old. When I was younger, it wasn't so bad. I would always hear my mom say, "John, don't say that." And I never understood why she said that. But as I got older, I realized that he was telling me that I wasn't pretty, that I was actually pretty ugly to him. And those words stuck in my head for the longest time, and they went with me right up until about a week ago when I wrote a poem dedicated to my father called Pretty Ugly. So if you're interested in seeing that, it'll be on my Facebook. Don't forget to follow me on there. I share a lot of, mental health stuff on there that hopefully helps people out. I was finally able at the age of 53 to finally let go of the hurt that came from the words pretty ugly. I started hearing that when I was 4 years old, almost 50 years ago. 50 years that it's taken me to heal from words. And it's crazy to think that, all the beatings that I got over the years from him, all the imprints that were left on my behind or on the bottom of my back or my arm because I moved and that's where the belt buckle hit me. All that stuff healed and it hurt, but it healed. And it healed a lot quicker than the words pretty, pretty ugly ever did. 50 years of carrying around words that stuck in my head because of a narcissistic alcoholic man that tried to bring me down. See, it's really crazy. It's crazy how our mind works. After the age of 11, I had finally told my mom about the abuse that my dad was putting me through, the sexual abuse. She already knew about the physical and the emotional and the verbal abuse because she experienced it herself because that's just who my father was. And when our when my dad was finally gone from my life at the age of 11, I was never physically or sexually abused by him ever again. That was a very big turning point in my life. Being free from having to worry about a man coming into my room in the middle of the night and raping me. Being able to sleep a full night without being worried of that door opening. That was a very, very big turning point for me. However, the mental abuse didn't stop. My dad tortured my mom and I between the time that he was released from prison on bail right up until court. He used to sit outside of our house and play the song I Want to Know What Love Is by Foreigner, full blast in his truck. And he'd play it over and over and over and over again. And this went on for weeks. And then he tried to run me down with his truck before we ended up going to court so that I wouldn't be able to testify so that he wouldn't have to go to jail. And then the emotional and mental abuse continued at the age of 16 when he decided that he was going to come visit us to let us know that he was getting married and that he was not going to be in our lives anymore. And then shortly after that, I went to Toronto because I was tired of this man just throwing me away like a piece of garbage. And I went after him. And it was the worst mistake that I ever made because I ended up coming back home and trying to commit suicide. Again, it was a big turning point in my life. At the age of 18, he came back into our lives and he stayed. And things got better. I was able to build a little bit of a relationship with him before he passed away in 1993. Again, his death was a very huge turning point in my life because I was finally completely free of any abuse that my father could put me through. I was in my 20s. I just had my first daughter. I was recently married, and I was finally free to not have to watch over my shoulder anymore. I was free from the sexual abuse. I was free from the physical abuse. I was free from the emotional abuse, the verbal abuse, the mental abuse. I was free from it all. So I went through a lot of abuse. I went through pretty much 18 years of abuse from my father between the physical, sexual, and the mental and verbal abuse. Although my mom was never physically abusive to me, and she was never really verbally abusive towards me, she was mentally abusive without, I don't know, I want to say without knowing that she was being abusive because of the fact that she had schizophrenia. I can't tell you how many times I've watched my mom commit suicide or try to attempt to commit suicide. Can't tell you how many times I've ridden in the back of an ambulance and watched that woman flatline. I can't tell you how many times I've cried not knowing where I was going to go next, what was going to happen to me. Was I going to be sent back to my father? I went through a lot of mental trauma with my mom because of her schizophrenia. I remember sitting in a mental institute that she was in after she had shock therapy, and her not even knowing who the hell I was, screaming and yelling at me because I was not her child. I should get away from her. I was only trying to harm her. I was trying to kill her, so on and so forth. It's just, it went on and on. And it was almost like I felt like I was being punished for telling the truth about the abuse that I went through all those years with my dad. This was my karma for telling. And like to sit there and listen to years of stories and years of lies that my mom told me, searching for, a brother that never existed, um, believing for years that she had a harder life as a child than she really did. I always felt bad for my mom because I believed her story about accidentally killing her father and ending up in like a reform school type prison where she was raped by a guard and ended up getting pregnant and forced to marry him and having a child together. And, I carried that story with me for many years until I discovered the actual truth. And I always felt bad for my mom because I felt that because of what she had gone through, that's why she was the way she was. And that's why I felt like every time that I made a new friend that I had to explain why my mom was the way that she was, only to find out that I've been lying to these people. It's not my fault, but I've lied to so many people in my life without even realizing it. All because of my mom's schizophrenia. And it took a really big mental toll on me. Like, I took care of my mom from the age of 11 until she passed away in 2025, last year. And I unfortunately was not able to be there with her when she passed away. She wasn't alone. Our oldest daughter was there with her. So it was nice to know that, although I wasn't able to fully keep the promise of I would be there to hold her hand when her time came, I was thankful that my daughter stepped up to make sure that her grandmother wasn't alone when she died. And with her being a nurse, and she's in a palliative care. So it was important for her as well that her grandmother did not die alone. She didn't want that for her, and I will always appreciate my daughter for stepping up and doing that because I can't even imagine how difficult it must have been for her. I still took care of my mom from the age of 11 until she passed away last year. And I went through a lot of ups and downs with her. One minute she was fine, the next minute she wasn't. She was off her meds and her whole world was completely turned upside down, and so was mine. And it was very difficult to adjust through life in general because of all the abuse that I've gone through and the adult situations that I've had to go through as a child. It really carried on into my life as an adult. It really affected me in many different ways, but mostly relationship wise. I had a lot of trust issues. I had a lot of abandonment issues. When I first got married, I figured that was going to be it. That was going to be my only marriage, but I was wrong. Unfortunately, because we were both very young at the time when we decided to get married, we thought we knew what we wanted, but I don't think we really did. And it's unfortunate because, he was a good man. He was never physically abusive towards me or verbally or anything like that. I had a good relationship for the most part, except for the fact that he cheated on me, and that's pretty much what ended our marriage the first time. And although we tried to fix our marriage and we tried to get back together or whatever, it really wasn't meant to be. We ended up going our separate ways. And then I met the father of my youngest child. And at first, a good man, very good man. He was a family man, he was a musician, he was taking care of his children. He had all three of his children living with him. And I started babysitting for him, and then one thing led to another, and we ended up in a 6-year relationship. And at first it was good. Things were great. Everything was sweet and gentle. And, although there were some red flags, I kind of ignored them. And then one day we got into a little bit of a heated argument and he ended up shoving me. And then it was, kisses and hugs and I'm sorry the next day. And I was like, all right, well, I kind of already knew where this was leading after having to watch my parents go through this their entire lives. I knew that at some point, if things didn't change in our relationship, that it was going to get a lot worse. I didn't know how much worse, but it wasn't going to get any better. So for 6 years, I put up with a man that was mentally abusive, physically abusive, and verbally abusive. Him and I used to fight. We used to argue a lot. We've literally had fist fights, him and I. He's thrown me down on the ground, smashed my head up against a cement floor. It was not the healthiest relationship whatsoever. But out of all that, I think the worst part of it all was the day that he's looked at me because he had just beaten the hell out of me and he decided that he wanted to have sex. And I was like, nope, not happening. And he had the audacity to look at me and say, wow, it's pretty crazy that you let your father have sex with you, but you won't let me have sex with you. And those words stuck in my head for a long time. And I think it's the turning point in my life where I realized that I felt like most of my relationships, I was being used for sex. And it's not what I wanted. I was used for sex already. As a child, I did not want that as an adult. I wanted to be in a loving relationship where sex meant something. And I, bounced around from one relationship to another until I ended up meeting my husband now. And we had known each other for years prior to getting together, so it was a very comfortable situation. And after only dating for a year, we decided to get married, and we've been together now for 17 years. And when we first got together, I still had a lot of emotional baggage, a lot of distrust, a lot of being unsure because of what I had gone through in my past relationships. And it took me a very, very long time to get past my own insecurities because there was nothing that my husband was doing to make me feel insecure. It was me because of what I had gone through. These little red flags kept coming up in my relationship or in my marriage, and they weren't actual red flags, but because of what I had gone through in the past, red flag. One of the biggest moments I think that made me realize that the insecurities that I used to have, I didn't need to have them in this relationship, was when I was living in Sudbury and my husband was doing contract work in Timmins, Ontario. And we were text messaging on a regular basis, and he was working night shift at the time. So he was working nights, he'd sleep during the day. So we didn't get a whole lot of conversation going on, but when we did, it was great. And I remember waking up and I hopped on my messenger to see if he had messaged me, and there was nothing. So I was like, all right, well, maybe he was just tired and went straight to bed. I ended up sleeping in that morning, so my bad. Then I noticed on his Facebook that he had posted that he had just gone to the dollar store. So I tried messaging him. Nothing. Message after message after message after message. All unread. And after a while, those messages started becoming pretty nasty because I honestly thought he was just ignoring me. And then my mind thought that, oh, he's probably, out with the boys partying it up, which is something that he never did. So I had no reason to think that, but that's where my mind went. And that I thought that he was screwing around on me because he was not answering me. My mind went completely into the worst scenario thinking, all because of stuff that I had experienced in my past. And when I finally got a message from my husband, probably about 6 hours later, he just, he literally told me, like, you need to calm down. I was sick. I've been puking all morning. Yes, I was at the dollar store. I went to pick up friggin' Tylenol and Advil because the pharmacy wasn't open. So I was just trying to find anything that would make me friggin' feel better. And then I went to bed. And that's why you didn't hear from me. And that was the moment that I realized, did I do this in every single relationship? Because if I did, I apologize to anybody that I did that to. But that's all right. And that's when I started to heal from the abuse that I had been through as an adult in different relationships. And that's when my red flags started going away. And I started building a real relationship with my husband. There's nothing in this world that I would ever not tell my husband. I share absolutely everything with my husband because I don't ever want him hearing something from someone else and wondering why I didn't tell him myself. It was my way of building trust, and he does the same with me. He tells me everything before anybody else has a chance to tell me. And that's what keeps our relationship strong because we don't lie to each other. And it's nice to have that kind of a relationship where I don't have to worry about not feeling well and being yelled at when he comes home from work because the house isn't clean. I don't ever have to worry about him going out and drinking with the boys because that's just not what he does. That's not him. I don't have to worry about him cheating on me. He comes home to me every single night. And even when he was working on the road, as soon as he was done eating and got out of, had a shower and he was getting ready to relax, I was the only person that he talked to. Other than having to message his boss once in a while, our relationship grew and it made me believe that it was okay to trust somebody. It was okay to believe enough in my relationship that my husband could go work out of town for like weeks and I never have to worry about him cheating on me. I know that when he is done his day, he's had his meal, and he's had his shower, and he's about to chill out for the night, I'm the person that he wants to talk to. I'm the person that he wants to be with, even though we can't be together. And that is such a big improvement over the years of abuse that I've gone through. I can't tell you that at the age of 53, how amazing it is to finally be free of all the abuse that I went through right from the beginning. I can't tell you how awesome it is to never have to hear the words, "You let your father have sex with you, but not me." I'll never have to worry about being cheated on. I'll never have to worry about having my head slammed off the floor or being told that I was pretty ugly. I never have to worry about that stuff anymore. And at the age of 53, it's friggin' awesome. After my mom passed away last year, I was finally free from all of it. I was free from the lies. I was free from the abuse. I was free from the mental torture. I was free from the sexual abuse. And I was free from my father mentally abusing me one last time. After all those years, I was free. And now I look at life a whole lot differently. I enjoy life. I can't wait for the next day. I can't wait to see what's going to happen next. I look forward to my future. I hope that I live like I'm 53. I'm going to be 54 this year. And I hope that I live long enough that my husband and I can make it to our 40th wedding anniversary because I want to be able to spend the rest of my life not being abused. I spent so many years being abused that I want to see what it's like on the other side. I hope, like I said, that I make it to like 40 years of marriage with my husband. I hope that everything that's about to change for us takes us on a whole new adventure that we could never have anticipated. I hope that life from here on out, although there are still going to be some bumps in the road, is gonna be non-abusive to both of us. And I can't tell you how crazy it is to sit here and say that I hope for all these things, because before I was just trying to make it through life and just get away from it all, just see that silver lining and get to the end of the tunnel. And I made it. I freaking made it. I'm free. I am able to just be me. And I can't tell you how friggin' awesome that is, because, man, when you've been through the crap that I've been through in my friggin' life and you finally get past it all and you get to see the bright light at the end of that tunnel, it's awesome. So hang in there, because your turn's coming. Your turn will get here hopefully sooner than later. Hopefully you won't have to wait 50 freaking years like I did to get through all the crap and all the healing and to be free from everything that used to hold you down.